So before we jump into Classlink, there is an extension that I would like for you to add to your device. I know we are trying to stay away from extensions, but this one is necessary in order to use Classlink. Your students will also need to add this extension from the Chrome Web Store. It is called Classlink One-Click Extension. So once you have visited the Chrome Web Store and added it to Chrome, you will be ready to move forward. You will need this later on. You don't have to worry about syncing anything, so you can just exit out of that. So you may be wondering what Classlink is. Classlink is a resource that the district purchased in order to eliminate much of the stress and headaches that we have as teachers creating usernames and passwords for every website that our students need in the classroom. It also helps with students not having to keep up with all of the usernames and passwords. So essentially, you now have more time for learning and less time spending logging in. It's kind of a one-stop shop. So it's really cool. You're going to love it, I promise. This first year may be a bit wonky, but they have told us that next year will be even better. So let's go ahead and dive into Classlink. All right, so welcome to your Classlink Launchpad. When you first log in, you will probably see some apps that have already been pre-downloaded by the district office. What's really cool about these is that they've already been done for you. And if you hover over them, you might see a lock next to some of those apps. That means that those are permanent. The only entity that can remove those would be the district office. So those will stay there. And then you'll also notice that they have keys. These little key icons mean that the first time you log in or launch one of these apps, you will be asked to enter in your username and password, but you will only have to do this once. So once you've done it and you go to launch this app again, it will automatically log you in. So you won't have to worry about a username or password anymore. That'll be the same for your students. So of course we have more apps that we want to add, because if you can see, I have a ton of bookmark folders in here, and there are probably hundreds of bookmarks within those folders. And then I have more that you can't even see right now. So we want to take all of that, we want to put it into Classlink. So anything that you use often, anything that your students use often, you want to add it to your Launchpad. But where do we find that? Well, if you go up here to your plus button and you open the app library, it will bring you to this site, and you will notice that there are two libraries. There is an all apps library, which is a global library, and then there is the Richland District 2 library. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Richland District 2 library to see apps that have been approved by the district. So here we have pretty much everything from our G Suite except for Gmail. So I'm going to go ahead and add all of these to my Launchpad. So when I exit out of this and go back to my Launchpad, you'll notice that all of those apps have been added. We mentioned that there was no Gmail there. So I'm actually going to go back to the plus button. And instead of clicking on Richland 2, I'm going to leave it in the Global Apps Library. And I'm going to type in Gmail. You'll notice that two Gmail apps pop up. This Gmail non-SSO, which means single sign-on, is there, but I do see the one here for education. So I'm actually going to click on that one. And I'm going to add Gmail. So then I am going to exit out. Now you'll notice that Gmail has a little key hovering over it, a little key icon. That means when I first launch it, I'm going to be asked for my email and my password. Now, super important step right here, never press skip. You always want to press save for any apps that require you to enter in your username and password on the first go around. So you want to click save, otherwise you'll be entering in your username and password, which totally defeats the purpose of Classlink. So I'm going to save it. And then it opens up my email. So yes, I am going to save that. And I'm going to go back to my Launchpad. And I'm actually going to right click on Gmail because honestly, it's the first thing I open every time I log in to my device. So I'm actually going to click on Set Auto Launch so that whenever I log in to Classlink, Gmail will automatically pop up. So that's another cool feature right there. Let's say I want to add more apps. Well, pretty much anything you can think of is in here. And if it's not, then you can add it. But 99 times out of 100, maybe even more than that, you will find what you are looking for here. So let's say I use Padlet often. I'm going to go ahead and find the Padlet app, and I'm going to click Add. And oh, I know I use Kahoot often. Do that. I'm going to add it. Oh, I know that I use Canva all the time. I'm going to actually add that app. I'm going to add it with the key because I have the educator's version of Canva. And let's see, what else do I use? I use the S'more app for the beacon. I'm going to add that as well. So really anything that you can think of is here. If you peruse the topics to the side, you'll find a ton of apps that you may have even forgotten about that you might want to start using again. So lots of good stuff over here. Take time to explore, think about what you have in your bookmarks already and add those. And you know what? I'm actually thinking about, because I have my VoiceThread bookmark up here, that you can go ahead and add VoiceThread, but I will caution you that anything that is purchased by the district will eventually end up here in the Richland 2 library. Classlink is working very closely with our district office and the tech support there to upload everything that the district has paid for. So eventually you'll see things like WeVideo and VoiceThread, Reading A to Z, things like that. Again, it's already here. So like Reading A to Z is there. You can add that. But again, the district office is trying to work on uploading those as quickly as possible. So you can see I've added a lot of apps already to my Launchpad. Let's say that this is a bit overwhelming, especially for me. So if you are like me, you might want to organize your apps by right-clicking and adding a folder. And let's say I want to call this folder newsletter. I'm going to create it. And of course, you can change the color if you want to. And I'm going to push in anything that I use for the beacon. So I'm going to right click on S'more, and I am going to, let's see, add it to a folder. Whoops. And the only folder I have is newsletter. So I'm going to drop it in there. And I use Canva for our newsletter. So I'm actually going to drop it in there as well. So that will kind of help organize your Launchpad if you're a little overwhelmed once you start adding a lot of apps. All right, so let's talk about apps that don't necessarily appear in the app library. For that, I'm still going to open up the app library. And let's say the staff sign-in form that I have here that I use anytime we go into the building now, I want to add that to my Launchpad because pretty much I'm trying to get rid of everything on this bookmark. So I have opened up this staff sign-in form. I have copied with Control C the actual URL, and I'm going to go back to my Launchpad and my app library, and I'm going to do Control V. And of course, that's not an app because it's a form from our district, but I do want to add it to my Launchpad. So I've pasted the site in here. I'm going to add app, and you'll notice that it's asking me to type in my app name because I'm adding a new one, staff sign in form. And here is the URL for that. You can request a single sign-on for this application or any other one that you do that. That just would require your username and password. This one necessarily doesn't need it. And then I'm going to select an icon, and you can get lost searching for icons here. I'm just going to maybe do an S for sign on. So I'm going to add that app. So anytime I click on this guy, it will automatically bring me to my staff sign-in form. And I can hopefully remember to fill that out when I come to school and leave school every day. So that is how you can add a website that you visit that might not necessarily be in the app library. Now I will stop and ask you to notice that there is no key and there is no lock when I hover over the staff sign-in form. That simply means that it's a website. It's acting just like a bookmark. So when I click on it, it automatically launches me to that website. So no need for username and password. It's not locked in. Let's say I want to remove it. I can right click and just remove the app. And I can delete it if I don't want it there anymore. So another thing to note with this is that you only have control over your Launchpad. You don't have control necessarily over your student's Launchpad. That's through another part of Classlink, and we'll get to that in just a minute. I will say that also students, when they launch their app library, will only have the Richland District 2 library to pull from. So if you were worrying about kids being overwhelmed by all the apps that they would have to choose from because the options are endless, you don't have to worry about that. They'll only have access to the Richland District 2 library. So that is how you add a website to your Launchpad, and we will start jumping into adding icons and apps to your students' Launchpads. So you may be wondering how to add apps to your students' Launchpads. They will have anything that the district has pushed out automatically. So Big Ideas, Edgenuity, Pathblazer, more things will be coming down the pike for that. So, but for your purposes, you will want to click on this teacher console down here at the bottom. It has a little backpack icon, and you'll want to start referring to it as a backpack because that's what the kids will be calling it. So I'm going to click on that guy, and it will bring me to my subject areas that I teach. So I can click on that, any subject area. There is a place for you to make announcements. I caution you to do that because we're already using Google Classroom, and that's kind of the central location you want kids to go for announcements. There are apps. There's an apps tab here, which we'll talk about in just a second. There is a discussion board area where you can create a new thread, much like the stream that you have in Google Classroom. You can see all of your students and logins, how analytics, so you can see when they log into Classlink. And once they've logged into Classlink and they launch from there, you can see how much time they spend within each app, which is really cool for, parent conferences. Good thing to look back on. So I'm going to go back to the apps tab, and I notice here that, of course, Big Ideas Math doesn't really go with ELA, but I'm just adding to this student's Launchpad. So you know what? Actually, I'm going to click back on my backpack, and I'm just going to click on my homeroom. I'm going to add from there. So I'm going to add a new app. You can, of course, add the G Suite here for your students if you want to go ahead and do that. But let's say I want to add my own app, and I want it to be the Kahoot login site. So I've gone to kahoot.it, and I'm going to copy that URL, and I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to select an icon, and I'm going to see if they have a Kahoot one. They do. And I want to keep that icon the same because they're pretty much familiar with that. Of course, I'm not going to click on the teacher one. I'm going to go ahead and click on just the K with the exclamation mark, and I'm going to add that app. So this student will automatically have Kahoot added to his or her Launchpad, which will be really cool because then you won't have to spend time later on saying go to kahoot.it. They can simply click on the app once they are on their Launchpad. So that is how you can add apps for your students. Students will be able to remove apps. Of course, they can't remove anything by the district, but they can only pull apps from the Richland 2 library. So that might be something you want them to go ahead and do on their own once they're in their own Launchpads. And then, of course, you can push out anything that is not in the Richland 2 library. But that is pretty much the Backpack Teacher Console in a nutshell. You have your dashboard up here again, and you can see the app that I have added here to my homeroom students. I added Kahoot. So they'll have that. So you'll be able to see all of the apps that you have added to each subject area. You might just want to stick with homeroom, and that will pretty much take care of everything. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up our chat about Classlink. I have come back to my Launchpad, excuse me, and there are just a few more things that I want to show you. So you can click on this edit mode here, and this will allow you to add a folder instead of right-clicking if you want to do that, as I've shown you before. You can change the theme. Right now I'm in Classic. For the lower grades, the kids may want to choose primary, which kind of cleans up the Launchpad. It makes the icons larger and a bit more kid-friendly. And then, of course, there is the professional version, which moves all of your good stuff over here to the left. I am going to probably stick with the classic mode. So you can choose to change the app size if you want to. You can change the font style, background and text shadow. You can change the palette of colors. You may add custom wallpaper that is already uploaded into Launchpad. And then, of course, you can click on your little icon up here and change the settings if you'd like to that way. So I have all of my information here. Again, there are themes, passwords. If I need to change a password to an app that I've already uploaded, let's say I need to change my Canva password, then I can do that by clicking on this little edit button and I can change it. I will say too that while we're talking about passwords, if your password ever changes or student's password ever changes, it's automatically updated in the Classlink system. So you don't have to worry about resetting a million passwords, for example, if your student's password changes in the inventory system. So have no worries about that. It automatically talks to the district's system. So we're good there. If ever you change something to auto launch, and let's say you auto launch a whole bunch of things and you just want to easily turn them off without right clicking, you can enable and disable those from here. And then, of course, There is your sign out and security information. And Classlink never shares your personal information, but they do caution you to not use this for personal use. So please don't add any banking apps or anything like that to your Launchpad. You can also change your profile image, which might be fun for you and the kids. They do have some fun profile pictures. Much of the celebrities are people that the kids will probably not know. And they are working on updating that as well. But those are there for you if you would like to change your profile picture. That is pretty much Classlink in a nutshell. Just a few reminders to download the extension, to use the teacher console to add apps to your students' Launchpads that way. And remember, anything that has a locker on it is from the district. It cannot be removed. And keep checking that Richland 2 app library, because they will be uploading more and more apps every day. You may want to go ahead and add the G Suite for your students so that they can start getting into the habit of just going to Classlink and getting to Google Classroom from there. And that might actually be something that you want to do together as a class. You might want to go ahead and bookmark and make that the only bookmark your students will have, which would be for Classlink. So basically what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to add all of my bookmarks that I have into Classlink. And then the only bookmark that I will have left will be actually Classlink. So whenever I open up my computer in the morning, I will just simply click on the Classlink bookmark. It will automatically launch my Gmail, and then I can go from there throughout the day. One more thing I do want to mention, you may receive notifications from the district about Classlink. That's where they will come through over here. So you may every once in a while see something pop up in your notifications. But this really is kind of a one-stop shop. I really hope you and your students enjoy using it. If you have any questions, I know this was a quick tutorial. Please don't hesitate to let me know. And if I don't know the answer, I will definitely try to find the answer for you guys. But I hope you enjoy Classlink.